Speaking of winning a game and it being fun and hard, I thought Thursday Night Football was good. We kind of hyped up the game, and it lived up to the hype. End of the day, and we'll play for you what Al Michaels said at the end of the game. Al Michaels kind of a curmudgeon. But the Bengals had a big lead. Ravens came storming back. Bengals were down 1, had a chance to either tie it or go for 2. As we told you, who was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers should have done going back to Monday night. They did go for 2, didn't get it, and so they lose the game. But it's really the perfect fourth quarter from Lamar Jackson that I think is the first jumping off point, right? Do you believe that Lamar Jackson and what they're doing, not just what they're doing, because they've dominated or played well in the regular season before. He's been an NFL MVP before. But it's the ability to come from behind as a team that's trailing, especially in the second half, that people, even like myself, said, hey, I get it. He's way better than we ever thought. But in that style, that running quarterback run-based style, can you lead a team to a win from behind? Last night, the answer is absolutely. Here's John Harbaugh, his head coach.
We're very grateful for that win, and we're very grateful for our guys, man. The way our guys play, how they fight, how they don't give up. Just what he said, there's still time on the clock. You keep fighting. Found a way right down to the end, even the defense getting the stop on the 2-point play. And that's what it took. It took a stop at the end to win the game, and our defense did that. Our Darius made that play, and the pass rush was there too.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think the Ravens defense is particularly good, but it shouldn't be lost on us. Shouldn't be lost on us that the Bengals, part of having a big lead and giving up the big lead is the Ravens defense had to get some stops. Had to get some stops, and they did so. Here's Zach Taylor, that's the Bengals head coach, summing up the loss.
It's a good football team, but we expected to come in here and win, and we did everything we could to do that. Doesn't change the fact that I'm proud. I think everybody on that field fought, gave us a chance. Also came on the road to a good team, and it's sickening that this has happened twice to us.
Here's Joe Burrow talking about losing another close game.
We just got to make the opportunities that are there, make the plays. You know, we did in spots and we didn't in spots tonight, and that's been the story of our season. So, you know, I'm going to do everything in my power to continue to be ready for the opportunities that come. Try to take advantage of them. Here's Al Michaels, not thrilled with how the game ended.
Too many games end this way. They just do.
Yep.
You miss calls, the whole thing. It's so frustrating to the fans. So frustrating.
Now, when he's talking about the missed calls, he's talking about what would have been pass interference? I was watching the game. I thought the game ended because Gesicki wasn't really open in the end zone. It might have been PI, super physical down at the end of a game. I don't know. Would he preferred a penalty flag on that one? Help me out, Dan Byer, because was that what he was upset about?
There were 3 penalties. There was Gesicki getting off the line of scrimmage, which was a hold. There was the end of the play where Joe Burrow was actually hitting the face mask from one of the defenders. And then actually the play where the ball was going was to Tanner Hudson, another tight end on Cincinnati, where the pass interference seemed to be the most visible when the ball just sailed right out of Hudson's reach.
They swallowed their whistles. Let's just be honest. They swallowed their whistles.
Yes.
We're going to have to get some people to get to Baltimore because I believe all of those officials have to have the whistles removed from their sternum as they've ingested them. And part of this is life on the road. Part of this is what the Ravens do. And it's a little bit of, I'll relate it. When we played against Oklahoma State on Monday, they foul so much and they grab and hold and bump you so much that at some point officials kind of get numb to it and I'm not going to call a foul every time. That's bad officiating. Gesicki was an obvious hold. Didn't affect the play, but an obvious hold. I didn't love the play call. It was basically Jamar Chase. So either you throw it to Jamar Chase or you use Jamar Chase in like a pick play, don't you? I get what they were trying to do. Hey, our tight ends, we have 2 of them, big targets over the middle. Go and get some, which we think are size mismatches. And again, I don't know enough about scheme-wise. And And the face mask wasn't egregious, but far less egregious things have been called. I thought what was egregious was early in the game when he was hit, and when Joe Burrow was hit hard, and there was no roughing call, and it was like so painfully obvious. Like now guys get like a half step instead of a full step. It was like 3 steps, then he got hit. I don't believe that's why the Ravens won the game. I do believe they missed some calls. But I also think that part of this is the trend in the NFL. And I watch games every weekend, and in college football as well. I do feel like they've allowed the defense to get far more physical, especially in the red area. And they've made teams win the game instead of throwing a flag and giving them the ball at the 1 foot line. Dan, no one watches more football than you. Is it fair to say it's kind of a trend in football, college and pro, of them letting them play a lot more around the goal line?
Yeah, I think so. I also think in a standalone game, all eyes are going to be on that game. So I kind of wonder why they would let them play, considering this is going to be the topic of conversation that we are talking about. But I think, yeah, and I don't think let them play is fair. I don't think it's fair for either side in terms of that sort of reasoning, because that would give the offensive player just as much reason to push off in the end zone on a play or anybody else to make a play that would allow them to get free. So, yeah, it just bad calls, and to have 3 of them come on one single play with nothing coming out, you're wondering what the refs are actually watching in the game. But, yeah, I think you're right. I think it's fair to say, like, yeah, let them play, but then you have what today is, and here we are all talking about what happened in that last sequence.
Yeah, I listen. I'm not going to get caught up in the last sequence. I thought there were missed calls throughout the game. I just, my focus is on the Ravens, because they've been good for a while, right? They've been good for a while, and yet they have yet to do anything really of substance with Lamar Jackson at quarterback. And you're just trying to figure out, is this year different than other years? Not just because you have Derrick Henry, but has his control of this offense? Remember, last year was the first year in this offense. Has his understanding control of this offense will allow them to play better when it actually really matters. Now, what is, and here is more to your point and to Al Michaels' point, is the Bengals, while there's a lot of mediocrity in the NFL, and the Bengals defense isn't particularly good, Bengals are a pretty good football team when they're healthy with at least those 2 on offense. Like they got, and I'd like to see them in the playoffs. You can't artificially make it happen, and they've lost a bunch of these close games. And you're trying to see, like, all right, can they still make the playoffs despite yet another close loss?
It's funny, Doug, because they've played 2 close games, both that went to near the end. Overtime was the first game in Cincinnati. But one is 4-6 and one is 7-3. And I would say that Baltimore and Cincinnati are darn near the same team, especially when you consider what Baltimore's defense is. And I actually think that Baltimore's defense has allowed Lamar Jackson to have more of the opportunity to put on a case for a 3rd MVP, because they aren't good right now. Like, they gave up 10 points to Denver a week ago. But prior to that, it wasn't any better. We mentioned the Bengals, where they gave up 38, gave up 23 to the Commanders, gave up 31 to the Buccaneers, and they gave up 29 in a loss to Jameis Winston and the Cleveland Browns. And so, like, when I look at the Ravens and I look at this game, they and Cincinnati really aren't that different. 3 games separate them because the Ravens won 2 of them against them, but they're no different. And in that sort of case, like, I think of Kansas City, like, are you going to go into Kansas City like you did week 1 and challenge them again? Or is Kansas City going to play playoff football and realize that they can score at will against your defense, and all of a sudden you're having a more tougher time scoring against them? That's what I think is more likely. So I look at the Ravens win last night, and I'm like, maybe they aren't the great team that I thought they were. They're great offensively, and Lamar is magnificent. But they have Jamar Chase have 260-plus yards against you. I mean, he's the only guy they have. T. Higgins didn't even play.
That was like Cooper Kupp in the Super Bowl, where everyone knew one guy was getting the ball, and yet he kept being open. And by the way, Burrow, man, I mean, that guy, I love how Burrow plays. He kept delivering the ball. There's literally one guy. That was their whole offense, it felt like.
Yeah. What did Joe Burrow? What did Lamar Jackson do that Joe Burrow didn't do aside to have a couple of crazy scrambles? And I would say nothing. Well,
the one scramble was crazy. Like he ran backwards 25 yards and then just it was like that's like some stuff you see in video games or like Tecmo Bowl where you beat a guy to the edge and then all of a sudden he's on the sideline, they can't tackle him. Like that was crazy. But outside of that, no, Joe Burrow was probably the better quarterback, to be honest. But Lamar does have those couple scrambles which are obscene. And look, Joe Burrow did a bunch outside the pocket. He's just not running it as much.
Correct.
Because he'd been hurt before, hurt a lot.
Yeah, and it's not his game. He's not going to do what Lamar does. And I think
he runs to throw. Lamar runs to sometimes throw, but mostly runs to run.
Yeah, and I mean, it was all on Burrow's shoulders last night anyway. They threw it 56 times, and there was a point where they were up 21-7 in this game, which is a whole other story with Cincinnati. Like, Cincinnati doesn't have themselves. There was a point where they went for 4th and 2, and Burrow threw one deep to
what was that?
I don't know. I don't know why you don't just kick a field goal in that scenario. You go up 4, it then prevents the scenario that we saw last night where it comes down to one play and a 2-point conversion, but you score, and if you kick that field goal and things play out like they play out, that go-ahead touchdown for Cincinnati is to take the lead, not to try to tie the game.
Right, and they have a good. It's not like they don't have a good kicker with their own confidence in.
Right.
And Justin Tucker missed an extra point. Like there were some things that went for you last night.